Welcome to the Global Discussion, discussions with creatives, leaders, and thinkers. My name is Simon Hodgkins, and today it's a real pleasure to be joined by Lari Numminen. Larry, you're very welcome to the show. Let's begin by asking you, maybe tell us a bit about yourself. Tell us a bit about this wonderful, exciting world, because I know AI features heavily here, but tell us a bit about your background. Tell us a bit about who you are.
Yeah, that's a great, delighted to be here. It's an exciting opportunity. I'm a career marketer. I've been working in marketing for the last 15 years. My early days, before I knew what digital marketing was, I stumbled on a job at Google, learned about search marketing, have worked in a bunch of startups, digital marketing agencies. But for the last 7 or 8 years, I've been a chief marketing officer in software companies. And that's kind of my background, working for global companies that are looking to sell software.
Now, selling software is one thing. Using software is something else altogether. And I know with your current sort of focus, you're doing a lot of work on AI. Who isn't at this time? But particularly the thing I want to tease out as a fellow marketeer, as somebody who knows what it's like to be the chief marketing officer. When it comes to things like search engine optimization, and AI is playing a bigger and bigger role. And I know recently you shared a bit of information around this, and I want to sort of get into this topic a little bit, because obviously AI can help, but you need to know how it can help. And could you maybe share a bit of insights and wisdom on this topic?
Obviously, with the interesting story is that I've been working as a kind of marketing leader for a very early stage company for the last 12 months. And many people know how software companies are doing right now. We're having difficulties maybe getting funding, and really it's quite challenging time for anyone who's looking to expand their company in this financial market. Having done search engine marketing for years and years, the typical way you do it is you'd hire content marketers, you'd spend a lot of time creating the content yourself, you'd kind of look through every detail of what you create, and then you perfect it over time. For us as an early stage startup for the last 12 months, we really didn't have any of those options. Our money was running low. We had to bootstrap and close down any kind of investments. And we really had to come up with a more creative way to create content, so that we could get more customers and more sales interest. And the reality was that out of pure act of desperation, January, February of last year, we started using ChatGPT, like many other people. I think many people outside of marketing know as well, but February 1st last year, ChatGPT Pro or Plus launched, and it opened up a completely new world for any creative artist or content producer, where all of a sudden you get a very, very sophisticated research assistant and content assistant to help you. And it completely changed the way that kind of marketers like myself could work. In an act of desperation, we really embraced it, probably a lot more intensely than many other companies out there. And that's really kind of got me down the rabbit hole of really using it to an extensive level for search engine optimization.
Yeah, and I suppose I think many people listening to this who've been in that startup environment. You're trying to scale a business, you need to grow the company, but your funds are limited. You can only allocate a certain amount, if you're lucky, to those sort of marketing content areas. But then this new thing comes along called AI, and everybody jumps on it, and everybody's trying to create content with it. But you took it to a new level, didn't you? Because you kind of had to, in one sense, from what you're saying. You had no choice. But by doing that, you really started to figure out the commercial operation of this, how you could use it to really generate returns for your business. So what were some of the takeaways when you started to really get into this? I suppose at the time recording the latest version of ChatGPT, what was some of the secret sauce, or what could you share some of that with us?
Yeah, I think if you think about the conventional way of doing things, in my previous chief marketing officer role, we had a kind of I would say now, a pretty laid back content calendar of producing maybe one article, one really good article a week, and really thinking through and deeply investing in any new piece of content we did. Even with a content marketing team of a couple people, with all the resources we had, that was kind of the old way of doing things. When it comes to what the tools like ChatGPT can do, you really have to start thinking about, okay, is this old model working anymore? Or are there ways that you can do your old work a lot more efficiently and be ready to accept the compromise where the first version of what you do is not perfect? And in this new world, if you think about producing one piece of really high quality content a week, what we discovered early on is that if you produce, 3 articles a week and edit one more, you're effectively producing 4 times the amount of content that you did in the past. But if you keep on refining the content you're producing, you keep on expanding upon it, effectively your productivity and quality increase over time to a level that traditional content teams or marketing teams are really not used to, that kind of speed and agility.
Yeah. So going back to what you said there, though, a lot of people will be familiar with you pay a content writer or a subject matter expert, so you're paying for that. Sometimes you're paying per word, you're paying depending on the length of the article. Then you're checking it that it matches your brand and your tone of voice and that it's aligned with the kind of key points. So there's a lot of manual overhead, even though you may have somebody else that you're paying to write content for you. But then with this AI world, you're sort of talking about tripling the output. You're getting more output up front, but you still have this level of, I'm going to say QA, you still have this level of sort of human over the top of it, who's then refining it. But the difference this time is that feedback isn't going back to an individual. You're doing that all within the AI model, and it's getting better over time. Are you continuing that discussion on that article, or what does that look like in practice, in the reality?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting reflection that kind of the way that we use ChatGPT, people are still using it like a search engine where they're expecting to get a perfect answer the first time they use it. And this is not just for SEO, for marketing, but in general, they expect that it's going to give you, based on the world's wisdom, the best #1 result. But it doesn't, what we found, it doesn't really work that way. Typically, it works a lot better as a conversation, hence the name ChatGPT, where any topic you want to cover, if you give enough background information on why you're asking questions, if you start asking related questions, almost like bits of conversation you're having with someone, like a research assistant, then you get better answers over time. And I think most people don't get it that way, that the more you give in terms of context and what you're looking for, the more you start getting very high quality answers back. And this whole new method of creating content does make it kind of the information you're getting a lot more efficient. And also it kind of removes the whole writer's block from what you're creating, where the first question you might ask, you might not get the right answer, but if you ask the questions in 2 or 3 different ways and you get something in return, all of a sudden the content you do get back is exactly the way that you can imagine it.
Yeah, thank you. And what about, everybody's heard the term prompt engineering, but what about the kind of, do you have a standard template for the kind of way that you start these conversations? Is it act as a copywriter, act as a technical expert, you're a CMO? Do you follow that sort of standard prompting? I need an article, it's X amount of words long, or is there a different way you approach this?
Yeah, here's a good tip for everyone to try out. There are tools out there like AI PRM, which is basically like an extension that sits in your Chrome browser and kind of helps you create these prompts, even if you don't know anything about prompts. So there's a tool called APRM, and I'm sure there's many others, where it will help you draft prompts like an engineer. We used a lot of those tools, but of course, after time, we started creating our own, where definitely the more you can give contextual information about what your role is, what you're trying to achieve, what is the expected outcome, you can get a very, very detailed and different response. We've learned so much about, let's say, the tone of voice, where, you know, if you say you want a creative answer or you want an analytical answer, the even changing a single word in a prompt can have a massive impact on what kind of content you generate. Ultimately, I don't think anyone really needs to become a master of prompt engineering, but they need to have a understanding of what they're trying to achieve, similar to, like, let's say, you know, back in the day when people were writing websites, you know, you're not going to expect everyone to become a back-end engineer of a website so that they can kind of draft every single pixel of a website by themselves. But having enough understanding about how websites are built goes a very long way to actually helping you generate the kind of answers you're looking for.
Yeah, and I suppose if we put the chief marketing officer hat on again, it reminds me very much of making sure that the creative brief, for example, that we would have written historically to send to an agency, for example, and say, look, we need this and this is why, and you'd have to put context in there. It's very similar, isn't it, in the way that you're describing here, working with the AI model to say, I've got to give it the context, why I want this, what I want the campaign to do, or in this case, the article. And here's the tone of voice, and here's our brand guidelines. And you kind of have to teach it all that. And then the other thing that's really important that you've emphasized a few times is that doesn't mean it's going to give you back this polished article straight away. You're going to have to go back and ask it a few different things and say, look, could you change this a little bit? And it is back to that term you've used. It's as though you've got this highly specialized research assistant sitting next to you that you're having a conversation with, yet people maybe put it in, everybody's getting the same type of generic responses back from AI, and we're seeing lots of people flooding lots of content at the moment that's kind of, you can, you know, once you've been using AI for a while, you can kind of spot, well, that's written by AI. But what you're saying is about refining that and taking it to almost the, you know, a true marketing art form where you're actually getting really bespoke, tailored, meaningful, engaging content, correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. So if you are if you put a generic message into your prompt, you will get a generic message out of your prompt, and that's just the way it goes. I think the interesting aspect comes, and most people don't think about it, is that, you know, many of the best articles you can start by just figuring out something that either is uniquely human to you, like a genuine thought leadership view, or let's say a piece of research or insights that is in no way copyable. So starting with something that is completely original, you can get really good interpretations of that. You can honestly try and put like a table from a very deep research article into ChatGPT and ask it to summarize it, and you will get fantastic results there. Now, if you apply that same to any kind of content you create, just like when you are generating content, there's no value in just generating generic answers for generic questions. Always think about what is the layer on top that you can add already in the early stages of generating, that also helps tools like ChatGPT understand what is it that you're adding value to the large language model of different kinds of insights that they're tapping into.
And the thing I want to bring us back to, Larry, if I can, is once you have this content and you've done it the way that you're describing, ultimately this gets put on a website, on a blog post, it gets published as an article somewhere online, and then we're back into traditional search engine optimization. You know, the Google algorithm will kick in. What are your experiences in making sure that the article then has this sort of domain authority, that it gets noticed, it gets traction, other than sort of the traditional marketing things? What, when AI comes into that loop, what are your understandings here?
Yeah, I think the kind of based on our experiences for the last 12 months, where we were really taking a website and a startup with we had no visibility in January of last year. We had like 100 people on our website. The key insight we found when we started generating content and really applying like SEO strategy along with AI generated content is that it's better to focus on becoming a topic authority. So it's better to write about topics that you deeply understand and know about, and kind of really produce kind of efficient scale in something that you're comfortable in writing, rather than like generating content on vast majority of topics that are not really relevant to your business. And I think a lot of companies are making the mistake now when they're tempted by the ease of creating new content. They're just going for the masses. They're producing 1,000 articles, and they're hoping their best that eventually someone's going to find, out of those 1,000 haystacks, they're going to find that needle of their business. I would much rather suggest to people, whether it's building content for your website or really thinking about the content you're generating, is focus on your topic of authority, and kind of build yourself in an expert in one thing based on the things you know, and based on the things that, again, ChatGPT is not going to make you smarter in your day job, but it can help you describe your day job much better.
Yeah, and I mean, do the standard Google, SEO tools, the search consoles, those are still all deployed in this environment, I'm assuming?
Absolutely. I think there's the old-fashioned SEO tools, or I wouldn't even say, but just a kind of standard toolkit. They are still very, relevant today as they've ever been, understanding where the opportunity is and what you should be doing. At the same time, there's an interesting expansion of, there's literally hundreds of different tools these days that help you write new content. Most of them promise to be better than ChatGPT in a variety of different ways. Of course, when there's 100 of them, eventually someone will get better than ChatGPT. But it's not even that. I've seen tools that are like content generation for people who have a WordPress website. I've seen people, GPT tools that kind of go into producing Facebook posts very well, and so forth. So just like a marketer can solve a million different tasks more efficiently, I think there will be 100 different tools that just make different parts of your day just a bit better. And this won't just go for marketers. I'm sure, like, the ultimate goal is not that there's going to be a million different tools, but there will be some tools that just make your day a bit easier and let you focus on the things that are perhaps more strategic and exciting.
Now, something else I want to ask you about is this term hypo-loco. Can you take us through this? Because I think it's interesting.
Hyperloco is a term we started describing when we're creating new content. It's really about identifying high potential, so high potential terms that have low competition, hence loco, CO there. And the idea is that when it comes to creating new content, the world is full of really well-produced content, and especially if you're producing software, there may be competitors like Microsoft or SAP that really, IBM, these likes, they have all the resources in the world that really produce kind of the best level of content for topics that are well known. With hypo loco, the idea is to find very specific sales related terms that whether you're producing a service or a software, there will be questions that your potential customers are asking, and creating content based on the questions your customers are asking. The opportunity there is that there's a lot less competition in those terms. So we produced, again, the reference here is that if you can produce 3 or 4 blog articles a week related to the questions your customers are asking, that's much better than producing this definitive answer to the basic questions that someone like Microsoft or SAP has already answered.
So this is where we come back, don't we, full circle to what you're saying earlier, that the topic authority is greater than the domain authority, really, I think is what we're saying here, isn't it? Yeah.
For any startup or any kind of global leader, is the opportunity is that anyone can become kind of recognized authority in the things that they already know. So you may have like reluctance to write written content. You may have been like, I had a good example where I am Finnish by my parents and so my background, but I really lived most of my life abroad. And I never, since the 6th grade, I never lived in Finland, and I never wrote in Finnish. So for me, I had a massive writer's block in creating content in Finnish because it wasn't my first language. However, with GPT and with other tools that are like becoming very, very sophisticated and machine translation, I've been able to completely come over the writer's block of writing in different languages, where the same kind of skills or machine translations we've been able to apply to many languages like German, French, and Dutch. So it kind of opens up a blocks of like creativity where you no longer are limited by what you know in terms of languages or abilities to write. And it will make a lot of people who are reluctant to consider themselves as authors and content producers kind of far more confident in producing and expressing themselves.
Yeah, so I mean, whether it's, you're using Mars, for example, or whatever tool you're using to look for those sort of growth opportunities, maybe those, back to that sort of hypo loco type of approach, and then you can really flesh that out and then use it for that inspiration to help pull the basic draft together and then work on it from there as you refine and refine. Yeah, 100%. The other thing I wanted to ask you though is, and I do want to move on to a few other questions, but just to wrap up our topic on this particular area of our conversation, what about the time that you have to invest? Because this isn't something that happens overnight. You've got to be prepared to invest and learn and to iterate. And like, if you were starting again with the roadmap that you've been on recently, would you advise people, look, it's a 3-month journey before you get anywhere? You've got to, what's your view on that, Larry?
Yeah, I think if you think about it from the long-term perspective, I think the disruption we're facing when it comes to AI generation content, it's as big a trend as I've ever seen. And I don't think anyone in the field, besides a few very sophisticated engineers in these companies themselves, are experts. So there's never been a better time to start, and you're definitely not late to the game. In Finland, we researched that 85% of marketers had already used ChatGPT. So it's like, people have tested it out. People know it exists. And reality is that most people are still in the testing phase. The vast majority of even marketing leaders, when we asked, over half of the marketing leaders said they weren't sure if they were going to budget more investment into this in 2024. So most people are in testing phase. Most people have that doubt about whether it's, they've got a million different priorities they need to go after, and carving out time to really invest in it's a challenge that everyone faces. But when you think about it from the next 5 years' time, this is not going anywhere. So, even a few hours a week, when you think about how big an impact that's going to have on your own learning and ability to execute in 5 years, then I think it's something that everyone should be thinking long term, rather than, hey, am I in it early, or have I already missed the boat?
No, 100%. Well, listen, thank you for sharing those insights. And I'm sure for everybody who is working with an AI model of one description or another, a generative AI or LLM of some description, that journey that you've taken us on and some of your own insights will be very valuable for people to hear. I wanted to ask you, though, about the next 6 to 12 months. What does your future roadmap look like? What are you hoping to achieve over the next year? What's that look like for you?
Yeah, so kind of in the last 12 months in our startup, we really doubled down, tripled down, really put the kitchen sink into the problem of SEO and generative AI. We had really good solid results. So we got 22 times the number of website visitors from Google in a year than we did the year before. And now I'm excited and really looking forward to applying this same kind of models into other companies. So I've switched on over to becoming a consultant. I'm doing consulting specifically in the very small sphere of SEO, generative AI. And I think it's also for someone who's been doing a type of job for a long time, this is the opportunity to just kind of mix things up a bit. So, if you're a marketing leader or executive in a company and you've been doing one thing for a while, now in the next 6 to 12 months, whatever your job role is, now is a good opportunity to just pivot a bit, take a bit of time to deepen your understanding about how AI is impacting your sector, and double down on where you can do it right. So for me, It's applying the skills I've learned into new areas, new consulting projects and customers. But I'm also immensely excited to see the different kind of experts are going to be emerging in different parts of marketing or business leadership, where I do feel that the next 12 months and 5 years for anyone, it's about going a bit deeper in the things that you know. Because to be honest, the generalist skills, the more we see it, it's easier for things like generative AI to replace the admin and task management of things that are easy to understand. For everyone, it's far more interesting to go into the deep end and embrace the opportunity.
Well, look, you couldn't be in a more fast-moving area of what's happening at the moment. AI seems to be touching everybody, every bit of software, and every industry, or at least most of them that I come across anyway. So I think you're going to have a pretty busy year ahead, that's for sure. Look, before we run out of time, two quick questions. The first one is, if you were going to share any sort of final thoughts or insights, what would they be for our worldwide audience? And secondly, and importantly, if people want to connect with you, whether it's for consultancy, whether it's to find out, the latest sort of information that you're sharing out there, where is the best place to send people to that want to reach out and connect?
Yeah, no, thanks for that, and it's a fascinating question. I think, to be honest, there's a lot of hype around AI, and I certainly don't want to add to that kind of hype cycle. When it comes to where we have found the most value is, SEO is something I've been doing for years, decade practically. And when we started applying, AI to something we were quite familiar with, and something I'm very, very, kind of used to doing, that's where I really it clicked for me. And all of a sudden it was like, oh, hey, I can do this thing that I've been doing for years just a bit better. And that's the thing that I would encourage everyone to do when you're thinking about anything related to AI, is don't try to reimagine what the future looks like, because we don't know. But try to look at what your life is today and the things that you've been doing for a long time, and instead try to think about how is it going to make you just a bit better at who you are today. And that applies to SEO, marketing, but any task really. And I think we'll find that the more we focus on the boring day-to-day aspects of what we do every day, that's where the value is going to come out first. In terms of actually connecting with me, well, I'm prolific in following people's ideas on LinkedIn. I contribute a lot. I try to share as much as I can transparently about what we do. So LinkedIn is really the place where I'm active. And yeah, Simon, that's where I guess I follow you as well. And I think that's the place where I would say that we continue the conversation.
Well, listen, thank you so much indeed. That brings us nicely to the end of our episode today here on the Global Discussion. Firstly, I want to thank everybody who's watching or listening to this discussion around the world. Make sure that you follow, that you like, you subscribe, do everything I need you to do to help support the show. And secondly, go over and, connect with Lari over on LinkedIn. Find out all this great work that he's doing in AI. He's certainly got some great insights, and I hope you've enjoyed those today. Make sure that you join me back here for some more discussions, though, with creatives and leaders and thinkers just like Lari. Thank you, Lari. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you again today.